Good morning. It is the 8th of April, 2022. I am here to express gratitude for a recent intuitive public music project that we have, I think we can say, gotten off the ground. Today is 6 Eagle, and there are a lot of references to other birds. When I read Daykeepers talking about the eagle Nawal, it's a day for honoring birds. Blessings to bird energy, blessings to eagle energy. So we have a piece that I think we read not long ago when we posted it. I think it was recently after we posted it that we read it. This special support opportunity to lend a hand to facilitate our intuitive media survivors groups in producing intuitive public music. Our necessary infrastructure is nearly complete. We are searching for assistance to get 2 to 3 more software disability recovery aid solutions in place, which looks to cost a little over $100. Can you assist? That turned into a single solution instead of 2 to 3 solutions. And we found a piece of software called Anthem Score that's allowing us to do what we needed to do. And that's very exciting. Intuitive Public Radio and our Intuitive Community Network are organizing individual and collective income streams and economic access points for severely disabled survivors of human trafficking and invisible violence who are otherwise prevented from financial participation and basic survival resourcing. Even better, these projects and income streams provide opportunities for healing expression, repair of one's creative process, and vocational resilience that is unparalleled by any other trauma recovery resource. Building this media infrastructure, we get to experience how survivors recover from what had seemed irreparable and bring their own essential gifts into healing and strengthening themselves, their environments, their families, and their community members. Be our co-producer and claim your front row seat to the powerful and unique musical expressions of our friends and colleagues who have survived the impossible. All of us together are now building the new world our hearts hadn't dared hope for. In our midst, it's manifesting. Contribute via paypal.me/intuitiveinvisibles and reach out to t.me/maxmorris for additional arrangements. Find more information about how to support our work by visiting intuitive.community/support. This message found at t.me/intuitive public radio 10111. So that's what we wrote. I get to remember it fresh each time I read it because that's how I get neurological access to it most of the time. So now that we have this set up, what that allows us to do is have a lot more flexibility with how we create music for our platforms together. This is something that many of our community members had some kind of access to. I had some kind of access to these tool sets. And then my access to them and the likelihood of me ever coming back into contact with them was wiped out. And a lot of others have similar stories. We also have many, many, many community members that have never in their lives had an opportunity to interact with tool sets like these, to make music of their own accord or with others. And so as we organize access points for these kinds of reparative activities, these kinds of recovery activities, we're creating something that hasn't been there before. Because we're not just making one individual project. We're creating the interstitial infrastructures that support many similar projects and make sure that we are honoring where the energy of the living beings in our communities is really flowing, where it is strengthened, where it is most resonant. What are people moving toward that is most right for them? And how do we support that? So it's really delightful how just a few individuals stepped up to help us pay for that $100. And in fact, we didn't. I was explaining this to someone and I'm getting a little bit better at it. I feel a bunch of pain in my body and in my cognition when I try to address it, but it is slowly getting better and better. Myself and many others have had continuous long-term experiences of being told that what we knew must be prioritized for our survival was not legitimate, was not in accordance with respect for one's environment, which is sort of an interesting thing. Essentially, we have been intersectionalized where there are certain things going on in terms of affecting people's ability to manage money. And left hemisphere injuries are one huge part of that. But it's not only the left hemisphere injuries. That just happens to compound the situation and make it easier for other problematic things to interrupt our access points. A decision was made in our groups that this music infrastructure was important enough to offset from the small amount that was available for food. That was the decision that was made. That is a decision that we usually have to make if we're going to make any infrastructure decision. We usually have to trade off our safe food resourcing. That is almost always the case. And so part of the discussion around the flow fund, around facilitating the flow fund for, what do we say, freedom and function, is that in order to ensure that survivor professionals who are expanding and strengthening their skill sets all the time, these are very unique skill sets on the front lines of the most extreme experiences that people are having that they couldn't communicate until there was this intuitive public radio. To develop those skill sets in a stabilizing way requires one to make many, many tiny incremental decisions, and many of those decisions have to do with money. So if a person would need to ask permission for every increment, it would not be possible to continue developing those professional tool sets. Depending on where you are in your life, you may recognize this. If you are infantilized in such a way that you are not permitted to make your own incremental decisions without going through a lengthy permissions process or a lengthy approval process or a lengthy, is this actually legitimate? I'm not sure process. It stops you from repairing your economic circuitry. It stops you from repairing the physical resources that your body needs to interact with economic conversations, to interact with any kind of mainstream connected financial resource or opportunity. It is a great privilege of a person who is able-bodied enough to have this privilege to keep one's own counsel, make decisions and act on them without necessarily verbalizing them as a sovereign living being. And that's part of what is taken away from survivors in extremity, that others don't quite understand what is happening or how it is happening. So we restore that by facilitating the flow fund. So any few dollars that you might have that you can spare, you can put into the flow fund, paypal.me/intuitiveinvisibles. We are a 508c1a nonprofit faith-based organization. If you are a payer of taxes, a donation to us is tax deductible. There are a lot of pretty amazing blessings that occur when we focus on this, when we facilitate the flow of decision making that has been interrupted or destroyed. We can help survivors in these situations redevelop their neural circuitry for economic participation, and that's exactly what we're doing. Not only that, but to develop that circuitry for recovery, for vocational recovery, for recovery of one's modes of expression, what is most natural to an individual that needs to express something for their own healing. That's a really important thing. And you might not notice how important and powerful that access is until it's missing. So the Flow Fund is great. And what happened when we received donations of support for this intuitive public music project, what happened was that the decisions that had to be made were made in the moments they had to be made. And then we knew we had a gap in the Safe Food Fund. Because members of our communities contributed to the Flow Fund, we were able to flow resourcing directly into the compromised Safe Food Fund, because that is what made it possible for groups to make the decision to pay for and implement the music production software. And that, when we explain that, like a lot of people, they're really trying to understand, but they haven't been put in that position. And so we would prefer that you don't have to learn about what it's like to be in that position by being directly in that position. We would love to help you learn about being in that position without ever having to be in that position. And that's a really a particular benefit of building the infrastructure we're building. So that delights us, because we don't like watching other people continually, unnecessarily slip into the kinds of hell dimensions we've been documenting over these years. We have much better ways to learn from one another now and to collaborate. And gosh, I am really excited. Members of our groups are really excited because it's been quite a few years where myself and some who have been more visible in our spaces, but mostly our invisible friends and colleagues who must stay very private and very quiet for their safety. Sometimes we don't even have a private group with an individual. Sometimes all we have are various one-on-one conversations, because that's the only way to navigate it. Restoring these privileges totally changes outcomes across a massive number of intersections. And it makes sense that some unfortunate influences have worked so hard to prevent it. But when we recognize what we're moving through, we can support one another in ways we never imagined. Thank you for being on this grand adventure with us. If you want more information, you can follow Intuitive Public Music on Telegram Messenger. I think that's the main place for now, but we have a really lovely number of other projects with names that at some point I will share. I'm feeling really tempted to start listing, but I'm not quite there yet. So is there anything else I want to mention before I close down this magical window through which I am speaking to you? We're on our way to Jupiter and Neptune direct conjoined in Pisces, exact on April 11th. There's a lot of good vibes in that conjunction. There's a lot of powerful potential. There's a lot of ease and flowing. There's a great sense of bountiful blessings, gardens blooming. There is the resonance of our powerful collective dreaming and our individual dreaming, the healing we facilitate through dreaming together, the flowing we facilitate by communicating with one another. Look what we're doing. And today is the 8th. 3 days.